Well, it was an interesting weekend in the world of MMA with the UFC being on Sunday, but it is Tuesday as usual here at Combat Press. I am Riley Contic, and you are here for another edition of the Midweek Report. As usual, I am joined by my new co-host, Matt Quiggins. Matt, how's it going tonight?
Pretty good. How you doing, guys?
Doing well. Also joining us, who frequently or from time to time comes on the show, I guess you would say not frequently, but it's always good to have him on the show, is Wayne Dumas, also from Combat Press. How you doing tonight, Wayne?
Pretty good. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I said it now so I don't have to pay later.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Anyways, on tonight's show, we're going to recap, obviously, the UFC event from Sunday, UFC Fight Night 61, which was from Brazil. We'll also look at a busy weekend of major MMA events, which includes UFC 184 from Los Angeles, Invicta from the same exact city of Angels, Bellator 134, which was formerly known as the British Invasion and is now, in my mind, known as the Injury Invasion, and we have a touch on Legacy FC as well. So, kicking things off, we were on the UFC Fight Night 61 on Brazil, was live on Fox Sports 1, and as we were discussing, and it was been kind of the talk of the town, it was a card full of upsets. I believe it was 9 of the, 12 fights?
No,
9,
10.
9 of 10 fights, thank you.
10 of 12.
Oh, 10 of 12, okay. 10
Yeah.
of 12 fights that went to the underdog, which made it kind of an interesting night. I believe there was a sports betting website that actually lost over $1 million just based on bets on those underdogs. So it's kind of a crazy night. It was headlined by a heavyweight bout between two guys really trying to get their careers in order at this point, in Frank Mir, former UFC heavyweight champion, and Antonio Bigfoot Silva. What ended up happening in that bout, Frank Mir won by a fairly quick knockout in the first round, using his improved striking and finishing up with some ground strikes. So we'll start with Wayne. We'll give it to the guest of the night. Just kind of give us your thoughts on that main event. What did you think?
You know what? That's the old Frank Mir I've been looking for the last 3 years. Because right before the motorcycle accident, the dude was on a tear. I thought he would have been a champion for quite some time, but that leg injury just destroyed his confidence. And I think that he's getting it back, but the only thing bad about it is he's getting old.
Yeah, there's definitely questions about him being old, and it's not even old. It's also, obviously it's old in athlete years in terms of age, but he's also old in terms of fight years. He's been around for a long time, so that makes a lot of sense. Quiggins, what are your thoughts on that fight?
I thought it was really interesting, coming out in his, changing up his stance. It looked like Bigfoot just didn't know what to do. It felt like he trained. It would be like training for somebody who was going to, a striker, and they took you to the ground. He just looked completely lost. And, just like Wayne said, that's the Frank Mir we've been looking for. And he kind of took a page out of Arlovsky's book when he went for the finish, because he kind of moved to the side of Bigfoot's guard instead of, trying to get stuck in there. And, I mean, those elbows were nasty.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an absolutely brutal finish. You guys are right, and it was a very refreshing one. I think I stated last week, Matt, that I'm a huge Frank Mir fan, and that was the only reason I took him in that fight, was because of how big of a fan of him I am, especially his groundwork. But I think he looked good in that short time, and I think taking time off really helped him. We always are saying, oh, he was on a 4-fight losing streak, but that was to 4 guys that were in the top 5, including a title shot to Junior Dos Santos, which started that losing streak. So with that, there's a lot of talk. Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar 3. Obviously, Lesnar's still under contract with WWE, but I think it would be a fight that they could sell. So I just want to get your 2 opinions on it. So we'll start with Matt this time. What do you think of Lesnar versus Mir 3?
I feel like it's a fight they could sell, but I don't feel like it's a fight that has, obviously you can get rid of the bad blood, but it's just the way that Mir lost the last time is just, I don't know if that's something I want to see again.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. But again, you got to think that Mir's been training full time and Lesnar's been doing wrestling. So I don't know if that matters any, but I'm sure Lesnar's been staying in the gym. What are your thoughts on it, Wayne?
I like it, and I would like to see them both end after it. It would be
double retirement.
Yeah, it would be a nice ending to both of their careers. One last big fight for both. But I don't see Brock retiring after it. I would like to see him fully retire, fully from competition, with all the rumors of the concussions and everything. So it would be a fun fight for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would be interested on it just because it's a rubber match. Obviously, Lesnar was winning the first fight until he got put in that knee bar. But it's just something that would the UFC needs a show to sell. That's been their problem, is they haven't been having a lot of things that sell, and not only having Lesnar as a box office draw, but just having that as a fight in general, which fans would be like, well, I am interested to see that. Even if Lesnar would be a heavy favorite. I guess the last question having to do with the main event, and I'll start with Wayne this time. Is Antonio Silva in his last two fights since he's been off TRT has looked pretty awful. The quick knockout loss to Andrei Arlovsky, the quick knockout loss to Frank Mir, which reversed a hell of a fight against Mark Hunt in Australia, and a knockout of Alistair Overeem, which were before that, and that was when he was on TRT. So do you think that had anything to do with his doing well, and now getting off of it has just kind of turned him into what he is right now?
That, and people forget, he just had surgery not too long ago to get a tumor off his pituitary gland. So that might have some factor in this fight, because from my understanding, it was like December or at the end of the December that he had the surgery, which any surgery is major.
True.
Back to the TRT thing, we're going to see a lot of people coming down and not performing well with all this suspension stuff coming up. It's gonna be underperforming across the board, and you will see that the numbers, because if people aren't going to perform, then people aren't going to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of looked it up while you guys were talking. Bigfoot had his surgery back in September, so even then,
okay.
Like you said, if you really look at the Overeem fight, it wasn't a fight that he necessarily won. It was a fight that Overeem kind of lost.
Yeah.
We could talk about semantics all day long, but still, the off TRT Bigfoot has looked smaller. He didn't look like that giant mass of a person. And I mean, Frank Mir has been overshadowed by a few of the larger opponents that he's had. And Frank Mir looked like the bigger guy coming in Sunday night, which was amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I thought Frank Mir looked like he was in good shape, but he did look bulkier. He did look stronger physically, and that's I think Frank Mir's always been somewhat that physically strong. But you're right. He made Antonio Silva look. Yeah,
he looked that way against Congo, and he looked that way against when he fought Shane Carwin. But he looked way too big, as Shane Carwin, and he forgot how to move from side to side. So
yeah. No, I can totally understand that too. Definitely an exciting way to end the main event, or the card in general, with a knockout. So from that, we go from the heavyweights to the lightweights. In the co-main event, we had a couple of contenders in the 155-pound division. Michael Johnson taking on Edson Barboza after 3 rounds of a hard-fought fight. Johnson walks away with unanimous decision. He was the underdog in this fight, but Quiggins, before we got on the air today, we talked about how I'm not sure why Johnson was the underdog. Are you surprised that Johnson won with such ease?
Not really. I mean, I think the biggest thing was, people just factored in ring rust. Oh, he's been having a lot of issues. He hasn't had a fight since, April of last year. I think they were factoring a lot of outside things versus inside things. And I mean, he was a terrible matchup for Barboza. We already said that.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I had said that his wrestling would be an issue, and the fact that he did have improved striking that we've seen fight to fight, his striking under Henry Hoof has been getting immensely better. And then you add in the wrestling factor, and I think I compared it to the Danny Castillo fight, where Castillo was actually competitive in the striking early on with Barboza. So I don't know why he was an underdog either. I'll shoot this question over to Wayne. Wayne, for Edson Barboza, has he become the new gatekeeper of the lightweight division?
First off, to be a gatekeeper, you have to be up in the top 5.
Okay.
In my opinion, Edson Barboza has always been overrated. Yeah, the dude can be flashy. Yeah, the dude can get some solid knockouts, but his overall game to me is not. It doesn't stack up to the top 10, time and time again.
Yeah, and
And
I'd agree with that. Just he's a striker first. Sorry for cutting you off. He's a striker first, but we've seen him get knocked out by Jamie Varner. We've seen him get almost knocked out by Danny Castillo. So in a way, I would agree with you. I think he's been overrated to this point, and he's more been overshadowed by his flash and his flair as opposed to overall skill.
yeah,
Yeah. So going forward, does Michael Johnson get a top 10 opponent, Wayne?
I think so. To point on the point you made earlier, I don't even know why Michael Johnson was the underdog. I had him going into the fight. I love Michael Johnson's game. The Black Zalians are actually turning out product like they should have been in the beginning.
Yeah.
Henry Hoof has put that team where it needs to be. Just look at Rumble Johnson and what he's done in the last 5, 6, 7 fights.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Matt? Top 10 opponent for Michael Johnson going forward?
Yeah, and I mean, him calling out Benson Henderson, he kind of, it's an interesting fight. Don't know how I feel about it, but he did have a point. Basically all the other top 10 guys are booked. So, I mean, there's really not a lot of options. So I don't know if he was calling him out more so as well, you're the only guy left, or if he thought it would be a good fight and, get him one step closer to that title shot.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think that's an interesting call, especially because it's a former champion. He gets that win against Benson Henderson. There's not a lot of arguments you can make to him being in the title picture. So I think that's a smart call out on his part. But whether Benson stays at 170 or not remains to be seen. Obviously, I said to you last week on the show, I think Benson looked great at 170 pounds, and I think that he might be a little bit smaller, but I think he's got the quickness edge, and that's really what he needs because he's really not as fast at lightweight. So.
Yeah,
any other thoughts? Yeah, that too. Any other thoughts on this, Matt?
No, on this one. I mean, it'll be an interesting fight, but we've got a lot of lightweight fights coming up, and a lot of injuries could happen. So he might just end up in one of those.
Yeah, and I think that's something with the lightweight division, with as many contenders as there are, you always have to be ready. Okay, moving on to the third billing from the top. We had a middleweight bout between the Ultimate Fighter Brazil #1 winner, Cesar Ferreira, taking on Sam Alvey. Lasted only a round, and Sam Alvey didn't throw many punches, but the ones he did that landed were the ones that ended the night. Cesar Ferreira goes out cold from a Sam Alvey knockout. I will shoot this one over to Matt first. Cesar Ferreira, ever since he won the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, would you consider him a bust as a prospect in the UFC?
I wouldn't necessarily consider him a bust. I mean, I know this was one of our dissensions when it came to our picks. Just something pointed me towards Alvey. I don't know why. Maybe it was the smile.
That's true.
But at the same time, I mean, if you look at that fight, he was just taking punishment, and he looked for that opening, and while his opening was, taking an elbow to the face, he took it and, ran with it. So would I call for a bust? Not necessarily. I mean, not many guys would throw a combination after getting hit with something like that.
Fair point. Different question over to you, Wayne. Would you say that this fight is more reflective of Sam Alvey's ability or Cesar Ferreira's ability?
I would say Sam. I for some reason, since his first fight, I don't know if it's because his wife corners him or the smile or what. He's just different, and he has fun in there while he's winning. Yeah, but I've also seen video of him have fun while losing.
Yeah, that's true.
And but ability-wise, let me get to the question. Ability-wise, I think he has a higher ceiling than Cesar. I think Cesar is getting close to that point. Maybe with him being at Black Zillions now, that might help something. But I think Sam Alvey's ceiling is a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and you know what? Alvey's a tough guy. You saw it in the Dylan Andrews fight, and you saw it in this fight. He can take a shot, and he's aggressive and always moving forward, and you got to respect that from a guy. And I don't know if it's half of what it is in a fight, but a lot of it has to do with whoever's tougher, whoever can take more punishment. A lot of times is the guy that can usually walk out the winner because they can simply just go longer. And from what I saw, I asked you guys the question if you thought that Ferreira was a bust. At this point, I do, because what you saw in the Ultimate Fighter Brazil is not what you're seeing translating to the octagon. He hasn't been able to get a keynote win yet. And he's been a guy that has been, the Vitor Belfort protege. You're supposed to follow in the footsteps of your mentor, and he hasn't really done that. And he's taken a couple of bad losses. The CB Dalloway Sam Alvey fight, those were like picture the same knockout. It was a counter uppercut that he was left open on. And I saw this on Twitter. Somebody put, I forgot who it was, they said, Cesar Ferreira is always a counter uppercut away from being knocked out in a fight, which means that he's always coming forward and he's not protecting himself. And if his chin isn't as strong as other guys, he's going to get knocked out. And I really just haven't seen anything that stands out in his game that would make him kind of live up to that potential as the Ultimate Fighter Brazil's first ever champion. Where does Sam Alvey go from here, Wayne?
Give him a top 15, maybe a top 10, maybe a low top 10 fight. That's what I say.
Oh, really, that high? Okay, what do you say, Matt?
I would stick with a top 15. I know he called out Walsh, so just because he said he likes him, he's fun, you think it'll be a good fight, and after that fight that Walsh had last weekend, not a lot of people were clamoring for anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go as high as top 15. I still think he has some work to do. Remember, he did lose to Tom Watson in his premiere. I'd say maybe top 25. But he's a guy that you can have on a card, and he's going to have a fun fight. So definitely a guy you got to keep your eye on in the middleweight division. Moving on, this is the last main card bout I'm going to talk about, and then if I give you guys your one fight you want to talk about from the rest of the card, you can bring it up. But we had a lightweight bout between Brazilian Adriano Martins taking on Rustam Khabilov. Not really the most exciting fight from what I saw. Very, very hesitant for both guys. But what ended up happening was a split decision goes to Adriano Martins in what was considered a very large upset. Quiggins, you remember last week I said I'm a fan of Martins. I just didn't think he matched up well with Khabilov, but Khabilov did not show up to fight. What went wrong for him, Matt?
He got out wrestled by a guy who's not known for his wrestling. And I think it was the same thing that happened with Bigfoot and Mir. Mir came out in the orthodox stance, and he just looked at him like, you're not supposed to do that. And I think that's exactly how it happened with Khabilov. I mean, he was getting out wrestled, and you could see there was a few times where he just looked at him like, what just happened?
Yeah,
and I really think that he underestimated him.
Yeah, I would take that too, and I don't think, he didn't look completely like he was in the fight as well. That Rustam Khabilov I know is aggressive and using his wrestling and throwing guys and even his striking had looked better. Wayne, what were your thoughts on this fight?
Khabilov didn't look like the Khabilov I saw against Sanderson. I'll tell you that much. I actually did a mental breakdown. I was gonna write up a breakdown of this fight. I didn't get a chance to, but I watched tape of both, and I thought Khabilov was just gonna come in, take the center, go forward, get the clinch, take him down, get the back like he always does, go first. That's the way I thought it was gonna go, and he just looked real tentative for some reason. And I don't know why.
Yeah, I've never quite seen him that hesitant in the octagon before, which was why it was such a weird performance. But I think even as fans, we might have underestimated Adriano Martins a little bit as well, because if you remember his fight with Darren Cruikshank, he looked really, really strong. And am I freezing right now? What's happening?
That's what it looks like.
Oh, boy. I think it's coming back. Anyways, I'll keep talking if you can hear me. If I'm kind of freezing, I apologize. But I think Martins really kind of showed people that he has to be taken seriously. He's a guy with knockout power. He's a guy with submission prowess, and he's a guy that can take you down. I think he has very underrated wrestling, and that was one of the reasons why he was able to beat, although we've mentioned it before, albeit a tentative Rustam Khabilov. I'm experiencing some technical difficulties here. Hopefully I can figure this out. I don't know whose picture will be on the screen, but Wayne, is there a bout other than the ones we've talked about on the card you'd like to discuss?
That women's bantamweight bout. What's her name? Renault versus Dronje.
Yes.
And she's impressed me. The only downfall is how old she is.
Yeah.
But if she can move quick and get fights on a regular basis, on a 2-3 month basis, I see her vying for a top 5 position in the bantamweight division.
Yeah, I agree. That was a great fight. Matt, what was the fight you were looking forward to most?
Well, I
Or
mean, that was one of them, but I'm not going to talk about it since Wayne took that one.
okay.
But Matt Dwyer,
Yeah.
that Superman punch. First of all, I don't know why the ref waited as long as he did to jump in because when a guy falls face first, it's probably the end of it. I think we just lost Riley.
Just keep it going.
Yeah. So I mean, and with Renault, it was basically Andrade's over aggression to me that lost her that fight because she
Yeah.
just kept going into the guard and it was basically asking for it. But Matt Dwyer, they talk about that being one of the best Superman punches ever, and I would still probably put it second behind Travis Brown and Stefan Struve for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was like a tree falling down. That wasn't even.
Anytime Stefan Struve hits the ground, it looks like a tree falling.
Yeah, the Paul Bontello fight back at UFC 107, that was just crumble.
The Mark Hunt knockout.
Mark Hunt, Roy Nelson, Junior Dos Santos.
All right. Well, while Riley's trying to get back on, let's move forward to this weekend. I'm actually very excited for 184. Not most people are.
Well, let's say why though. What was this supposed to be?
Yeah. The supposed to be was the Chris Weidman fight.
The Chris Weidman fight, the Yoel Romero and Jacare fight.
The reason I'm excited is I'm an Albuquerque guy, and I am excited to see what Holly can do in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Riley just texted me. He'll be right back.
Okay.
So, just a quick breakdown of the main card. Rousey versus Ngannou for the women's bantamweight title. Pennington Holm for the women's bantamweight. Ellenberger, Koscheck, Joban versus Walsh, and Ferguson versus T-Bell. Let's start from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson versus T-Bell. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's crazy because T-Bow just had that fight on the 18th of January. Really, split decision, but still a pretty good fight. And I mean, I think Tony Ferguson's going to take this, and I think he needs to. He needs to take out a guy like T-Bow and really, cruise up that, that very cluttered, lightweight division.
The thing about T-Bow is he can't. A lot of times he doesn't handle straightforward pressure very well, and that's Tony Ferguson all the way. Coming forward, I'm going to punch you in the face, and I'm going to just you can't handle what I'm going to throw at you at the rate I throw it at you. So I'm going to go with you on that one. I think Ferguson's going to take it. I'm going to say by decision. I think T-Bell's got a chin on him. I don't think Ferguson's going to be able to knock him out.
Well, I mean, T-Bow did get knocked out a few fights ago, so I think Michael Johnson did it. So I would say that Ferguson probably has more power than Johnson, but it's going to be whether or not he's going to be able to land it.
Yeah. Next fight's Al Joban versus Richard Walsh. You know what? I don't know Walsh too much. I haven't seen too much on him.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, both guys are relatively new. Walsh was on the Tough Smash or the Australia Ultimate Fighter. Joban, everybody knows him because he's a model when he's not doing fighting. Still crazy. I mean, both guys are coming off losses, but they're both controversial, decisions. So I don't know if it's going to hit, both guys that hard. But I'm going to take Walsh in this one. I just think he's going to have the edge.
I've seen a few fights of Joban. I like his style. I think he was robbed in that last fight. I would have to go before I make a true decision. I would have to go watch some of Walsh. I vaguely remember him on that season, but that was a while back. So I just on sake I'll go Joban just to be different. A fight that everybody is overlooking, but is a big fight for both fighters is Jake Ellenberger versus Josh Koscheck. Koscheck, he's at the tail end of his career. I'm surprised he's even fighting again.
Especially on a main card.
Yeah. it's name recognition at this point for this card.
Yep.
And Jake Ellenberger just looked like he had no clue what was going on when he took on